Welcome back to the Dive Podcast. My name is Pastor Joey. This is
Sarah Dickman.
Alex.
Alex.
Yeah.
Pastor Sarah is our children's pastor here at Grace Point. Pastor Alex is our youth pastor here at Grace Point. And I'm the lead pastor, and I'd like to welcome you to the Dive Podcast. Thanks for joining us. What we do here is we get together on Monday morning right after Sunday, and we talk about the message and the Sunday from before. This week, we actually had our family service, which is a cool thing we try to do quarterly, where we just have we have the nursery open basically for babies. Everybody else comes in here and they worship together. One of my favorite parts about the family service is just watching people in their family units and all the kids in there with them. And I love seeing the families together, worshiping together. I know to do it every week would probably be a lot for parents.
Be a little chaotic, maybe.
But I love doing that quarterly. Just having the kids in here, and I think Seth had said it in the welcome, but just teaching them how we do what we do, right, and how we worship. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, it also allows their innocence to speak to us, that they don't care what people are doing while they're worshiping. They'll worship the way they want to.
It's cool to see. I'll be like, even me, like, I'm not a very expressive, person when it comes to singing and stuff, but like, when Wenna's there with me, I'll dance around and stuff. So it's cool to look around and everyone's like having fun with their kids and stuff.
That's a cool angle of that, of like where the kids give us opportunity to be more free. Like normally if you act like this, it'd be weird, but his daughter's with him, so it's not weird. Like he can dance, that's fine. It's like, wait. So this week I want to see you dancing over there.
Yeah, there you go. With a big smile on my face.
Hey, I'm always dancing. So.
Yeah, right. But it's a cool thing. And what we do when we do the family service where the kids come in, but Pastor Sarah and I, we co-preach the message, which has been really fun. What is that? We've done it a bunch now. 5 or 6 times probably. Yeah, it's been a couple years. Always a good time. So we can jump right in. I guess we have we're in Luke 18 this last week, talking about a parable that Jesus told between Pharisees and tax collectors. If you are on our newsletter or get any of our news, we did want to play a funny video yesterday that was like a cartoon version of this story. But something happened with tech, so it didn't work out. But it's going to be out in the newsletter. But we didn't play it later because once we got preaching, it was kind of like more serious, and the video is less serious, and it just didn't seem to fit. So something cool that happened yesterday was like all of the two of us plus Dustin in the back all figured out like, we probably should just let that one go. But if you were with us during the COVID times, we call those the Heyo video. Is that what they're really called?
Heyo.
Yeah.
Okay. They always I don't know how to explain the animation. It's just but the Heyo, like that's how they greet.
This is Jesus.
Yeah. They're awesome. Well, we'll play it for you later.
What is that in ancient Hebrew?
Right.
Heyo.
Yeah. A little more,
We started. Have you guys seen House of David?
So I started watching a little bit of it.
Okay.
I saw ads of it, but yeah. I'm
one episode in, and I have not seen enough yet to recommend it, but it seems like it's pretty cool. But there was someone said something in it and with a H or sound like that, and it was just heavy, and I'm like, there it is.
The
like,
phlegm.
Yeah. So if you watch more of it, let me know what you think about
Okay.
it. My sister saw it; she really liked it, but I'm only one in. But basically, this is a story about how we approach God, and something fun about when we were preparing for this, like Pastor Sarah and I sat down last week and we were talking about, okay, what's being said here? And when you first read this passage, it's clear that, the Pharisee who's praying is praying can you pray offensively? I guess you can, right? Yeah, like it's almost an offensive way that he's praying. And the first way, when I read this, the first way I read it when we were talking about it was like, it's offensive to this person that he's praying like juxtaposing himself against, right? Of like, thank God I'm not like this guy. But really there's an affront even before that, which is to God himself, right? So you've read the other book more than me. Do you want to explain, if someone's listening and doesn't know, like why a Pharisee might pray like this and like why this is kind of their thing?
So a Pharisee wants to be seen, is better in culture. Like in the culture, they're held high up and they're known to be more righteous, and they're the kind of person that people kind of look up to, and they want to make sure that everybody knows that they're better than everyone else. And they are pretty adamant about, well, I need to make sure that I'm close, but I'm not touching them because they may make me unclean.
Yeah.
Because they're unclean.
Yeah.
And I need to go before God clean.
Yeah.
So but I want them to understand that they could be like me. And so if they listen to my prayer,
Yeah.
maybe they can be more like me and get what I am saying and kind of live that way. So when I talk about giving my tithe and I talk about all the good things I've done, maybe they'll pick that up and they'll do it.
Yeah. Trickle down religiosity.
Yes. So, I mean, in a way, there could be good intentions of saying, let me model this for someone else.
Yeah.
But in this instance, it's more of let me brag about what I've done and make you feel bad about what you didn't do.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems like it started in a place that was good, like the idea behind why Pharisees exist and like the goal, and then it kind of morphs into, and that's what we do as humans, right? Is like we change things from this good intention into, okay, now it's self-serving and it's become its own entity, and that if you read the Gospels at all, like Jesus wars against the Pharisees more than almost. I mean, he is rough on that. He is gentle to most other people, and he is rough on these poor guys. And they earned a lot of that. But there's just this affront to God and how we pray and how we start that conversation with Him even. And it was a check for me this week too of like, do I ever ask myself, like, before I ask God for something, like what my motivation is, or do I just run straight to Him? Does that make sense? Like and I hope that didn't come across to people as I shouldn't take everything to God, because you should. But sometimes I think you can check yourself before, like He's given us minds to think. And so sometimes I think you can catch something and be like, oh, that's something I want that might not be for the best, and maybe I can just leave that behind.
Yeah. What's the motivation behind?
I say, or maybe the way you're praying about it.
Yeah.
Like you may be praying, Lord, this person is getting on my nerves, and please make them stop. Or maybe you need to say, God, please give me patience with this person. Like, so instead of praying that they're doing the bad thing, maybe you need to change your prayer to, Lord, help me to have patience and help my attitude to be better towards that person.
Yeah. What's the word for like a prayer as a curse?
Oh,
there's a word for that. It's like a type of prayer. It's not often used in Scripture, but it's in there a few times where it's like, cast down my enemies and stuff.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
see that a few times, like in the Psalms or whatever.
Yeah. Man, there's a word. I can't remember it now. There's a word for it, but I think a lot of people, maybe we take that too far.
Hey, when the bear comes out, you gotta watch out.
Yeah, you got to be careful when you're
she bear
using the.
No she bears.
No she bears. That's
sent on the kids.
I think that should be the name of today's show. Is no she bears.
No she bears.
No she bears. Yeah. But it was. I thought. I mean, the stories. It's funny how like so much can be packed into. It's verse 9 through 14 basically, right? And so it's not like a ton of scripture, but the teaching point is huge. So there's this Pharisee that's just pridefully praying basically, and then there's a tax collector who is completely different. And I think what was the comparison I used yesterday, or was like
a politician and a pastor.
And a pastor, right? Yeah. And like, because today we don't think of, I mean, I guess if you said IRS agent, people would think tax collector, but like we don't think of that too often. But
they're not like, we don't think of them as like betraying our culture and inherently evil and stuff like that. It's like it's a necessary evil.
Normally.
Normally. Normally.
Yeah. They're figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
Right now, so.
But one of my favorite things about the family service is, and you see this every week, so you can probably speak on this more than I could, but this is like, it's not exactly the most easily digestible, like thing to be taught. Like righteousness is kind of a hard thing to teach, like what that means and what that's about. And sometimes we think that like sometimes I think people avoid stories like this and they focus on the easy wrapped up ones for kids. But I was watching kids yesterday learn about what we were preaching on. And so like, how do you approach, what do you think the main differences are? Like, how would you, when you're preaching to a group that size and that varied in age, like How do you change that when you're approaching, because kids are listening too.
So you always have to. I mean, if you ever go into, if you're an adult and you go into a kid's service, I'm telling you, you're going to learn something, even if it is geared towards children. But when you have a mixture of adults and kids in a service and teenagers, and you got people that have been in their faith for 80 years, and so you've got all different walks of life in here. You just address it in different ways. So like, that's one of the reasons, well, it didn't play, but that's one of the reasons we have the video, is because that's visual. Like, you get to see it visually, and then we tell the story. So like, when I told what it might look like, and I explained, the incense wafting to heaven, all this stuff, that gives you the visual, auditory learning, where you picture it in your mind yourself. And so like, if you approach every learning style, usually the kids, now the adults can do this on their own if they wanted to, but the kids have like worksheets that go along with the sermon. They had a paper that was sermon notes that had them like write, what was my favorite song from today? What was the sermon about? What can I learn about how I live? And so like, it helps them then put it into practice of what they've learned. And now it's a tactile thing, something that they can like see and touch and feel. And we've done, object lessons where they make something with a pipe cleaner, something like that again gives them that tactile, now I'm touching what I'm thinking about and seeing and hearing.
I know a lot of adults that wouldn't mind coloring sheets. Throughout,
Got to start doing that.
Hey.
Give people homework too.
Or doodles. I used to, in youth ministry, kids would doodle. And then, so I would start telling them, like, okay, if you're going to doodle, then doodle something that goes along with what we're talking about. Right? Like, and then I want to see it later. Sometimes people would draw some pretty cool stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're bringing it back in the kids department. I did it before COVID. And then when COVID hit, we stopped for a little while, and we're bringing it back. But every time we do our lesson, we have a video, we have, where I tell it, and then we talk about it. And then afterwards they get out their journals, and they can either write or draw something from the story that either they learned, or it will help them remember what we talked about when we talk about it the next Sunday when we review. I can say, oh, go back to your journal. What did we talk about last Sunday? And then when they graduate out of the kids department, they take that with them, and they have this journal of all these stories that we've talked about from the Bible.
There you go. Then they can journal.
How beneficial would it be? For like adults, And I mean, there's some people that are taking notes and stuff and doing their own thing, but like, I think maybe we should be encouraging that more.
We used to have like the handouts. Basically. So you had the bulletin, inside the bulletin
sermon notes.
There was like the notes, and it
Mm-hmm.
would have the scriptures that were going to be used, and then the points. And then people would get frustrated if you didn't like say the
Follow
point
it.
long enough, or like if you changed, I'll be like,
You missed
I
a
didn't
word.
get my blank.
You're gonna have to go to summer school, if you don't.
We just have to put a slide up at the end that has all the answers, like a key.
There you go.
Yeah, it's like, all right, guys, here's
Answer
all,
key, here you go.
If you missed anything, here's the answers from this last week. But I thought this was it was a really good opportunity to be able to teach kids and adults and everybody in between on just the attitude you take when you approach God. And life is so much like attitude. Like, you can say the same exact thing with just a different attitude,
different heart,
and it be completely received differently, right? I know you've both talked with people, like when someone's genuinely trying to help or solve a problem, there's a tone in their voice, or when they're just complaining. And I don't know if complaining is my least favorite form of attitude, but it's like top 3, right? And it's like, okay, I see the problem, we all see the problem. Let's just solve the problem instead of sitting here complaining about the problem, right? And attitude is what this whole story is about. And I don't know, and you guys can weigh in on this, the whole beating of the chest thing. So the tax collector, as he sees the atonement that's being made for him, and he realizes that I could not have done this on my own. It talks about how he beats his chest, right? And then Sarah, you had talked about how that was a predominantly female cultural thing, and so I don't know if you guys just had, and if you haven't researched this, like, don't be afraid to be wrong about this. Full disclaimer here, we're just spitballing. do you think that's just another level of counterculture that Jesus is throwing in there for the time, or do you think that just is there to show, or maybe both of these things, just to show the extent of distraught that this man has, or well, it's an interesting addition into the, and because he's telling a parable, so he didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have to say the. So
Right.
what do you think? I guess.
I think a lot of it has to go with just he's so distraught. In fact, a lot of times when the people would pray, they would, either look to the heavens or they would, kneel or whatever. And it says he wouldn't even look up. Like he wouldn't even look up to the heavens, and he beats his chest. And so I think Jesus is trying to show how humble and distraught this man is, that he can't even look up to God because he feels he's so undeserving.
And you see his his attitude too. Like the Pharisee is not concerned about. It's like he's being self-righteous, and he's concerned about the people around him, and like that's what his mind is on. And then you see the tax collector, like he doesn't care what he looks like, and that might be like a feminine thing to do or something like that culturally, but like
He doesn't care.
he's not doing it intentionally to be countercultural. He's just, he sees his need, and he's like, I don't care what I look like. Like I'm focused on God.
That just the just not caring for your surrounding, where the Pharisee is all about his surrounding, and
And so it makes me think too, and I forgot to mention this, but with the I know this is last week's sermon, but it made me think, because I had heard a sermon one time, and the pastor was explaining that the father running towards the son, that was not acceptable back in the day. Like honorable, like older men
didn't run.
They did not run at all. And you didn't want to like show your legs and like all that stuff, right? Like, so for him to like let go of everything, like to just run towards his son, like that's not
cool.
I
did not know that.
So
I wonder if that's funny when certain things become culturally acceptable, but there are also things that like would stop happening anyways. So like the older you get, the less you run. So everyone's like, hey, can we just make this not acceptable for old men to run?
Just don't run.
There's like one old guy that's still fit.
He's like
around, and they're like, we don't like this guy. We need to make this culturally unacceptable.
There you go.
Sidebar there. And then that's kind of what we focus the whole point of the message on is what attitude you have when you focus, when you come to God. Talked about how we should approach God, things that might help you if you want to make sure your attitude's in the right place, approaching with a right heart, approaching with a respect for Him and for others, and approaching with a relationship in mind. I think that last one is I liked all those points. I mean, we wrote them up, but I really like the last one there, like with a relationship in mind. That is just completely going to change how people interact with Jesus and how He affects your life, where it becomes I get to serve instead of have to, or I don't know. I remember feeling a definite switch in my life from like how I thought of church, and I've been in church most of my life and have always had a generally positive approach to it. But there was a change, when I really got serious about it, when God really got a hold of me, where it was like I wanted to be there and do those things. Do you guys? Did you have a similar experience? Do you remember that change, or have you just? I mean, I know Sarah, you've grown up in it, and I know Alex, you have a bit of a different story. But like, I want to hear a little bit of both of that. Like, do you remember having that change, or was it just always there?
So I grew up playing with God. In fact, I didn't tell this on Sunday morning, but the story of me teaching the stuffed animals, that was me.
Yeah,
like
where Jesus always had the right answer.
Jesus always had the right answer, and the other kids did not.
Yeah.
So like, I grew up with a dad that was a children's pastor. Like, so I grew up what we call second generation Christian because my parents were Christians. So they brought me to church. I grew up knowing God even before I asked for forgiveness in my heart. I knew Him. He was my friend. I played with Him. And so when I said the salvation prayer, of course it was life-changing. It was important, but it didn't really necessarily feel a whole lot different because I already had God in my life already. So it wasn't one of those, oh my gosh, I was doing all these terrible things and then I flipped. But I've discovered that happens in a lot of kids that grow up in the church. Like, yes, they turn and they accept Jesus, but it's not like oh wow, like my life was this terrible thing
Yeah.
before I knew Jesus, because they've known him their whole life. And so when I talk to a lot of people, they're like, well, my salvation story is not very important because
Yeah.
it wasn't a big, like, my life was different,
Yeah.
you know, thing. And I'm like, no, that's still your story.
Yeah.
You got to know God from the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
that's a little, that's a special thing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that you get to
yes,
hold.
that's
There's no
much
lesser.
nicer.
Yes.
Yeah.
lesser worth to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think especially, I think as you grow up, even if you grow up in the church and stuff, like, I think the more you live, the more you see like the effects of sin, like from your own heart and from the world around you. Like, you see, hopefully, especially if you have the Holy Spirit, like, you see your need more and more. Like, I think that's what it's all about. I think there's a really important, I don't know, something that's really important for our faith is to realize, like, at least for me, like, I don't know, like, especially not growing up in the church and stuff, like, I had all these different, like, worldly ideas of God and who he was. And it was always like, you know, this far off God and stuff. And, but then, when he becomes like personal to you and you see him like acting in your own life. And then, like, I started, just understanding more and more. And even now, like, I just feel like, I don't know, he just like is revealing more and more of himself. And, like, I think that's what it's all about, and is just seeing who he is, and you see just how holy God is, and like how far like we miss the mark, how much need we have. And this is like just like the Pharisee and the tax collector, because like he sees like his salvation, like the Pharisee sees it as like, it's like expected. It's like, well, of course, like, of course you'll forgive me, God, because like you've taken care of me, and like, and I've listened to you, I've done all these things.
Done all these things.
Yeah, exactly.
I've earned this.
Yeah. And like, how often, like, in church, like, you know, when we sin, like, instead of really repenting, like, we're just like, oh, well, of course God's going to forgive me because like, you know, like, Jesus died for me and all these things. And like, we just like lose sight of like, of our need, you know?
Yep.
And, but I just think that's super important. I had, let me see. I thought like, out of this whole passage, like, I don't know, last week we were saying like, oh, this is a great parable and stuff. And it's kind of hard to pick favorites.
They're good.
when you're talking about,
Jesus'
parables. But this one particularly, I don't know, I might change my mind next week if we do another parable. But like, I really do think this is probably my favorite parable.
It's
I just think the main word that everything hinges on is righteousness. And I was trying to look up yesterday, I was like, where does that come from and stuff? And but I looked it up a little bit, but you guys might know already, but it was the word righteousness in Greek, and I might butcher this, but let me see, where is it at? Yeah, it is, oh man, okay, I forgot how long it is.
You gotta take a shot at it. Yeah.
It's didikailomenos,
Sure.
which is the passive participle of righteous, like, or it means to make righteous, or to be made righteous. It's like a past. And righteousness, the idea of righteousness was like, God has this standard, and then if you are right with him, like, you are aligned.
Right.
And any kind of deviation from that, in my mind, the way I think about it is like, even if you're like 1 degree off, like, let's say you're like 2 parallel lines, if you're 1 degree off, you multiply that by infinity,
Right.
and
Eventually
you're like,
you're gone.
you're completely separated. And like, that's this idea of being made straight, being made right with God. And the tax collector, he sees his need.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what the whole passage hinges on there. And then, you know, I talked a little bit about like the world versus what Christianity says, and how I hear what people say that don't go to church or have, you know, are anti-Jesus, and it's always about how we're manipulative and we're after people's money and like all that, and that's so far from the truth that it's hard for me to even engage people sometimes when they say that.
I think there's some truth to it, though. Well, in the sense of, people don't want to let go of what they have.
Yeah.
They're like, well, this is
My-
my money and this is my
mine.
time, and yeah, exactly. When like you see like
Uh-huh.
in reality, like not just the tithe is
Yeah.
God's, like it's
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
it's
your
all
time,
His.
It's
your
all of it.
effort. Yep.
All of it. We tell people
Mm.
time, talent, treasure, talk,
Mhm.
and then type counts into talk, because now we talk without speaking.
Right.
When we type a lot of what we say
Your
now.
facial expression.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and like everything is to be given back to Him, and so that doesn't
Or
mean that.
kids.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's hard for people, right? Our careers. I mean,
Hmm.
there's 3 people in ministry, so like obviously we're preaching to the choir right here, but like you don't have to be in ministry to give. You don't have to be in full-time ministry, like vocational ministry, to give your profession back to God either. Like you can work at, you can be a mechanic, you can be a financial advisor, you can be anything, and still do that in service to Him. And so it all comes back to the mindset, right, and how we approach it. But and then it's I don't think it's coincidental that right after this passage there's this passage about when children are being brought to Jesus,
Yeah.
and it's semi-famous. People have heard it a lot, but the disciples they get a little frustrated that all these kids are coming in, and it just makes me think of like when you're in a family service, there's more noise than normal. There's more distraction than normal. And to me, like that is a good thing. Like that means that we have, like there are families here that want to know more about Jesus, parents and their kids, and it's like those are good distractions, right? Those are the good
It's
things.
okay to hear a baby cry.
Yes, and like that's fine. Like that means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? But it's also easy if to have your attitude changed about that and become semi-selfish and think, oh well, this is my time and this is that. And so there's the right after this is this story where the disciples do that, and they're like, hey, this is teaching time, we don't. And Jesus is like, oh no, bring the kids to me. That in fact, if you don't have a faith like they do, like you won't make it.
Right.
And kids are extremely adaptable, and like we go to the park and my kids will just meet some random kids they've never met, and they just play together.
Hit it off right away.
And like to the point where I'm like nervous about it for some reason, right?
Yeah.
But I'll see people come into church and like be nervous about talking to someone else.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, man, I wish we could be more like kids in that way. Like,
Right.
like,
Run up. Hi, what's your name?
yeah, like that's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They just,
exactly.
Hi, what's your name? Now we're at the park together, so we're friends.
Or they
Yeah.
don't even ask names. I say,
Yeah.
who's that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Who are you playing with? Somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
But just the open, and I know what happens. We get older and people burn you, and so as a
put up walls.
self-defense mechanism, but we don't have to. I want to think this out before I say it. God defends us in ways we could never defend ourselves, right? And so maybe sometimes we could put self-defense to the back burner a bit and just trust that God's going before us and defending us in front of us. Does that make sense? So I don't mean go live needlessly dangerous. Like you don't have to go, balance on top
Right.
of a skyscraper and go, God's defending me.
Yeah.
But you can start a
That's
conversation.
you're testing God at that point, right?
Yeah, right.
Like
yeah.
what was it like in the medieval ages? Well, I don't know. I know this one story. I forget who, but like they were walking through coals and saying God was gonna, like save them from like getting their feet burned.
And God's like, I already did. You could take a step off of the coals.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like, I'm giving you that ability already. Yeah. And that's what we kind of closed on there was just talking about the attitude that we take, and to take the attitude of the faith of a child, right? And
I just think they just don't have anything like in the back of their mind. They're just like fully focused on what's in front of them,
like no agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And like if I don't know if if a kid wants to give you a hug, it's like completely there, like they're completely in the moment. Focusing on what's in front of them.
Yeah, a lot of times churches that do these family services, they get a lot of kickback from parents of like, well, my kid's distracting in service, and I gotta worry about them not being too loud, and things like that. But I always, what I try to teach families from the pulpit and from just talking to them is it's about your relationship with your child in that time. So like maybe they're being distracting, but maybe it's because they don't understand what's being talked about, and maybe you need to turn to them and say, hey, this is what we're learning about right now. Like, and so instead of thinking about it as a distraction, think about it as a teaching moment. Hey, this is how we worship. We can put our hands in the air. That's what we do here. Or you learn from your kids, oh, it's okay to dance while we worship.
Yes.
And then, during the sermon, the kid might be a little lost on things that are getting a little confusing. Well, you can have that conversation. Well, this is really what righteousness is. And then maybe the kid comes out with something you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Like,
that happens. Yeah.
I mean, I was teaching in service. We lived in Kankakee at the time. My parents still live there in Kankakee, Illinois. And we were teaching about creation. And the question was asked, why would God make a tree that we can't eat from? Like, why would he do that?
Yeah.
And, you got different kids coming out, answering different questions. But you have one kid that raises their hand and says, maybe it's because he loved us so much that he wanted us to have the option to choose him. And you're like, whoa, yes.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer.
And
you don't get that from yourself, though.
Right. And sometimes adults don't even catch that. They don't make that connection. And then for a child to make that connection on their own, then it's their belief. Like, it's not mom and dad's. It's not what they're telling me I have to believe. It's what I believe about the story. And so
God is, you see God working in their life.
Absolutely. So in this, in the children's wing, we try to ask questions that get them to come to an answer on their own. So that it's not like, well, Pastor Sarah told me this, or mom and dad told me this, so I have to believe that.
Memorize this thing.
I've learned that myself, and I've come to realize that that's what this story means, and that's what God's trying to teach me. Now I own it. It's my faith. It's mine.
Yeah, you don't want them to have your faith.
Right.
You want them to have theirs. And yours can help to spur theirs on or to start theirs. But it needs to be
my faith isn't going to save my child.
Exactly.
In the same vein, it makes me think of like as pastors, like whether it's the youth group or whether it's like the rest of the congregation, like we can't do this work for you.
Right.
Nope.
Like if it's 1 hour a week, or even listen to the podcast or whatever, like all these things, like it has to be, you have to have a personal relationship with God, with Christ, with your Savior. And I mean, that comes from spending time with him in prayer, from having time set aside so that you're not, I mean, even Jesus, him being perfect, he retreated. He saw his need to get away from the world and be with his Father. So if he needed to do that, we 100% need to do that. And we have to be spending time in the Word to see who God is, because the more you see God, the more you'll see your need for him. Reading the Bible, you're like, man, humanity is messed up. It's always been that way, but God's always been gracious, and he's always been pursuing after us. And
I think I've told you guys a story before about that one doesn't work. All right, we won't use that one. I've told you guys a story before about the parents dropping kids off and being like, you gotta get my kids saved. And it's like, step one, I don't do that. Jesus does that. Step two, I'm here for an hour and a half, 2 hours a week, and it's just an awesome opportunity, I think, to especially in a corporate worship setting, to be, because we don't do that every week. It's a rare, we do it
4 times a year.
Max. It's an awesome opportunity for kids to learn and parents to learn too. So so if you don't have kids involved in that, and it's just a lot more distraction on that day, just love on them anyway.
Just bring you joy.
And if you do have kids involved in it, just soak it up, because one day they will be out of the house and gone. And
just because you're not their parent doesn't mean you can't help them too.
That's good too. Yes.
I know my kids, Grandma Phyllis, and they have adults that aren't related to us, that are family to them. And so, and they'll speak truth to them, and they know it. That my kids love Phyllis, my kids love Wayne. Like they are
Yeah.
a big part of my kids' lives.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like we're all supposed to be
Yeah, brothers
doing
and
this
sisters
together.
in Christ.
It's like, well, like
yeah.
members of the same body.
Yeah.
Weird, you know. But
Mm.
I had a blast, Sarah. You did a great job as always. Thank you for being open to doing that. I know not everybody would be comfortable doing that, so thank you for doing that. Do you guys have anything else that you want to add in here before I close us out? All right, cool. Thank you guys for being out here early and doing this. If you want to come to church and check it out, we meet on Sunday mornings at 10:30 at 1430 at Cox Avenue or Grace Point Community Church of Nazarene. You can find us online, gpcchurch.com. We're on YouTube. We're on lots of places. Find us there. We live stream on Sunday mornings as well. So if you're watching this from far away and maybe you don't go to church somewhere and you want to just check it out, we'd love to help you get connected somewhere locally, wherever you live, to a church too. So reach out to us. We have forms online that you can find us there. If you are planning an Easter visit, you can do that online as well through our website. Check that out, and you don't have to wait until Easter either. Like I like building up to Easter, but also you don't have to wait till then. You can come this week too.
We have Holy Week.
Yes. Yep. So that's in 2 weeks, right? Oh my goodness. It's all going so
Already,
fast, but yeah, Palm Sunday evening, we'll be here at the church with a Holy Week experience. It's like a walkthrough interactive thing. That'll be awesome. So come check that out too. And there's all kinds of Easter egg hunts, weather permitting, this week coming up.
Hopefully
On Thursday. So that's all I got, if that's all you guys have. So thanks for joining us. Check us out online or in person if you want to know more about us in the church, and we'll see you next week.